Hi, Phil Aston here from Now Spinning Magazine with another unboxing video, and this time it's Wishbone Ash, a band that I've covered many times on the Now Spinning Magazine website and on the YouTube channel. And this is No Easy Road. It's a photo book with a CD, but it's very different to a box set that includes lots of music or vinyl or whatever else. There are only 1,000 copies worldwide. So first of all, before I give you a summary of what I feel about this and a bit of overview, let's have a look inside the package. This is a look at the Wishbone Ash No Easy Road box set, Wishbone Ash live in the 70s, which is out from Matchfish Records. I'm going to tell you what I think of it at the end, but as I go through it, no doubt you'll get a feel for what I think of it as well. So it's typical of Madfish in that it is meticulously put together. This is primarily a luxury book with a really tough outer box, which I'll just put out the way. And what it has that makes it unique is this Wishbone Ash Live in the 70s, a signed print, where 4 of the members of the band have signed it. So Martin Turner, Laurie Wisefield, Steve Upton and Andy Powell. No Ted, but Ted's not on this picture. You can see that there's only 1,000 copies of this being made worldwide, and I'm lucky to have number 17. And then we have the main part of the package, which is the book. Now, some of these pictures, those of you who are very lucky to have the vintage years box set, some of the kind of memorabilia you might have seen before, but many of these photographs you will not have seen before. So forward by Sir Ian Rankin, OBE, and then we're into chapter 1. Martin, Steve and Mark, who was the sound engineer and also worked behind the scenes with Wishbone Ash, everyone except Ted waxes lyrical, and Laurie especially, on the story of the band during this period. Great memorabilia, but the main thing here is the text, the story, which I'll talk about more at the end. But I just want to quickly flick through so you can get a feel for this. The pictures are fantastic. The press cuttings are great. I love this. And this for a fan of Wishbone Ash from this period, which is seen as the main focus really of when Wishbone Ash were at the forefront of rock and roll, really. You know, the twin guitar sound. They were the first, weren't they? I suppose in America there's the Allman Brothers, but here we saw Thin Lizzy and Judas Priest and Rob Halford. Actually, there's a quote from Rob at the back, the influence of Wishbone Ash on Judas Priest, actually. But this is wonderful stuff. Posters, lots of photographs here are from their own personal archives. These are all from the Rainbow, November 1972. So that will be around the time of Argus. Cracking the States. Just fantastic stuff, really. Lots of behind the scenes text. As I say, you've got Martin and Steve all talking about in relation to what's going on in the book. And how they were feeling, obviously the pressures that Ted was under when he eventually left the band. And it's really interesting, that part, which I'll talk about at the end, really, that, you know, the 4 young lads, you know, no one really looking after them. And it says here, actually, I'll say this now, Ted put so much emotion and energy into performing live, he'd not only sweat buckets, but he'd sometimes pass out on stage, because whereas nowadays we're told, you know, you've got to drink lots of water, then probably people just drank beer. You know, and didn't eat very much either. So this is wonderful. And then Laurie's here, Wishbone Ash entering into, I have to say, my favourite period of the band, really. I love There's the Rub. And obviously Laurie had a very different kind of style of playing, which I think really pushed Andy to up his game. But the great thing about Wishbone Ash is this almost lyrical vocalising of 2 guitars almost talking to each other through the music. And, Martin Turner and Andy Powell's voices were soft as well. And I just think they had such a unique sound as a band. And then we're moving through into, obviously some great albums here. Some absolutely great albums. Live Dates didn't chart. Who knew? How did that even happen? That's a great picture for those aviation enthusiasts there. British Air Ferries. Remember those planes? Great behind the scenes, candid personal photographs as well. Look at this set list, which was put together. Wishbone Ash, Lou Reed, Mahavishnu Orchestra, Soft Machine, Caravan, Renaissance and the Climax Blues Band. Wow. Gotta love that shot as well. So just wonderful stuff. Wonderful stuff. As we're moving towards my favourite album by Wishbone Ash is actually New England. And so that's something that here we are as we enter this. Just, so getting all the background information about this particular album, some nice posters, live shots. It really was a coming back home for Wishbone Ash, that album, I feel, after Locked In. But yeah, some great photos. And so those of you who got the Vintage Years box set know the kind of book that this is. This is, I would say, is bigger than that, whereas that one was very focused, obviously, on each CD as you went through it. This is purely a historical document. And one of the things I like as well, which is coming up towards the end of the book, which you'll see in a moment, look at that. These are the key albums, aren't they? Although Clandestiny is still one of my faves, which is a much more recent one. Afterward, Rob Halford. I'll read that out when I do the summary. The set list, look, Wishbone Ash set list from 71, 72, 73. I think I would love this. So you could put together your own playlists and relive Wishbone Ash from any period through the 70s to 1980. And at the back, tucked away at the back, thinking where's the music, is the CD broadcast from Holland, 14th of August 1975. So that is a look through No Easy Road by Wishbone Ash. And now I'll give you an overview of how I feel. So that's a quick look at No Easy Road by Wishbone Ash. This is the Wishbone Ash classic 1970s, this period when the band went from strength to strength. Now, this is coming out on Madfish Records, and Madfish's relationship with Wishbone Ash goes back quite a few years. You've seen me cover the Vintage Years, which is a ginormous box set, and this is where Madfish excel. No one does box sets like them. And that is, I have to say, it still is probably the most favourite box set in my collection. Madfish also brought out the Argos set, which was vinyl and CD. And they also then brought out a vinyl-only box set, which included some of the double albums and released albums in the Vintage Years, but also exclusively a live double album, which wasn't in the Vintage Years set. So I think we're probably near enough exhausted by what is available now to release. And that may be why there's only one CD in this box set that you've just seen. And the quality, I know some people have said it's very much bootleg. I don't agree with that. It's a radio broadcast. And the playing and the performance is superb, but you won't find it anywhere else. The other thing is, I know some people have said, it's a book full of photographs and it's 100 and... I think if you look on eBay, you're going to see this going for about 180, 200 pounds. And I think that's people presuming they're going to get one and then sell it on. Because if you get it directly from Madfish, it's about 125 pounds. There are 1,000 copies. And obviously, one of its key selling points is the sign print. Because how many bands are there from this vintage, literally where every member is still healthy enough to be on the planet playing music or to be able to sign a print like that? Ted Turner hasn't signed it, but he's not on that photograph, but he did sign the Vintage Years one Ted's fine, but he wasn't included in the dialogue in this set. But I imagine Ted probably thought, well, I've said everything. They asked me to participate in the vintage years, and I did that. And this is different. And also, some of you might be thinking there must be some crossover, because the vintage years had a huge book in there where all the band were asked about each album as it came along. And then there's a big booklet in the live vinyl set where they all interacted and talked about it. And then in the Argus set, again, everybody was asked what they thought about it. But there isn't really. A lot of the photographs have you seen in here, the posters, the live stuff, the live material. Yes, you've seen some of those before, but a lot of the press cuttings and also the personal shots from their own personal archives haven't been seen before. And it's a bit like these guys were there in this band 24/7. So if you keep asking the same questions, it's like I was very lucky to interview Andy Powell for nearly 2 hours. And he said things in that interview apparently he'd never said to anyone else. So in this, there is lots of stories that you won't have heard before. But for me personally, it's worth it because I love Wishbone Ash. The fact you've got that quote from Rob Halford talking about how Wishbone Ash was such an influence on Priest and the twin guitar sound. I think this is an interesting point because Wishbone Ash are unique in that in the 70s, as music was becoming heavier, more metallic, and the age of the fans, then I was in my 20s, or teens mainly, 20s towards the end of the 70s. But we wanted music to become faster and harder. And in a way, Wishbone Ash were very, very different. We think of Thin Lizzy with twin guitar sound, or Priest if you want. But Wishbone Ash guitar sound was actually clean. There was lots of space around it. And yeah, there were twin lead lines, melody lines, but really the relationship with the two guitarists, whether it was Laurie Wisefield or Ted Turner, Andy Powell, was the way that they listened and spoke to each other within the music. And if you think about one of my favourite albums by Wishbone Ash, which is New England, there are these harmony lines, but it's more about almost imagining two musicians listening and answering back this, but not kind of the thing you'd expect with two guitarists doing solos and they're both doing fast runs. These guitarists, they're like voices, and that's important to me. The fact that guitar is like a voice. It's a way of the guitarist expressing themselves. They don't sing. They're listening to the words, the music, but they're using the notes to express an inner feeling within themselves. And Wishbone Ash do that. They really did. And the Laurie Wisefield says a lot in this. He was the new kid on the block, and he was a kid. He was very young, and he was obviously wanted to prove himself. He was more fiery, and I think Andy Powell must have thought, Ted was more laid back and kind of more probably had one foot in the 60s, but it really worked with the sound, Pilgrimage, first album, Wishbone 4, and of course, Argus. But Laurie obviously had more fire and wanted to found himself on a big stage, all the adoration you got from that. And so Andy Powell, I think, had to up his game as well. And so you had things like There's the Rub. Locked In was a kind of misstep. And that's all in here. I think there's more about Locked In and the story about how they felt about that. But equally, There's the Rub, New England, what was going on in the band, front page news, etc. And that's what I like about it. And that story about, Ted Turner was sometimes coming off stage and passing out. He was dripping with sweat, and he was reaching a point where he just didn't want to go on. But as I said, when you were a young kid, you didn't have a personal trainer or a coach or a record company, almost like a grown up saying maybe you need to drink more water instead of just beer or eat something. There was very little care for musicians apart from go out on the road. It's time for another album. And so you pick up that from the stories here, what was going on. One of the most amazing things is obviously the band will say that, they had the spotlight came down on them, Argus, live dates. They were there. They were a big band. Live dates didn't chart. I find that absolutely stunning to this day, when the studio albums before it and afterwards were hit top chart albums, but live dates didn't chart. You think about Made in Japan and all these other big live albums, they were like definitive. And Live Dates, in a way, is definitive, but it didn't chart. It's quite remarkable. As obviously you'd think, well, Wishbone Ash were a live band. But going back to this clean sound, these orange amps, it was rock music, but I still feel, and I've said this about a lot of artists from this time, the audience was almost too young to appreciate the brilliance that was on stage in front of them. And for me, as obviously a big Wishbone Ash fan, I'm still slowly going through the back catalogue and getting them on vinyl. Myself, I just recently bought Live Dates 2 on vinyl, the double one. It was a great album, and that was 1980. But this covers the 70s and those classic albums, and it's a story. And to hear behind the scenes and see the musicians and their partners, in late night hotels and cafes, on planes and buses and stuff, and all the stories going on about the music and what was going on. I find it marvelous. There's only 1,000 of these worldwide. So if you're thinking that's a lot of money, who's this aimed at? It's aimed at Wishbone Ash fans. There's 1,000 Wishbone Ash fans in the world who'll just want this. It'll just go. So if you are one, and if you got a big book in the vintage set, if you're lucky to get that. If you didn't have that, then this is absolutely, you've seen, I think it's a coffee table book. It's signed by the whole band. So it isn't going to come out again. This is it. You get a CD. It's not as good quality as what was in the vintage years set. And remember, with Madfish, nothing escapes again. I'm cynical, so I thought all those Wishbone Ash unreleased CDs in the vintage years set would be out by now. They haven't come out, so this isn't going to come out. It is what it is, and Madfish will just sit there on the shelves till they've all gone. But if you are a Wishbone Ash fan and you've seen the band many times and you have a connection with them, this is essential. If you're thinking, I don't know, I've always wanted to know more about Wishbone Ash, there are other places as an entry point, and maybe a signed print will just be like, well, that's nice. But if you are a Wishbone Ash fan, things like this will mean a great deal. So that is available now from Madfish Records, and that's where you should go to get it. I think Burning Shed have got some, but go to Madfish. Thank you for watching. Thank you for Wishbone Ash for all of the music. And, and I love the band as it is now as well. I'm not in any camp here. I mean, Martin Turner has been fully involved in this, and Andy, and it's fantastic to see them talking. I hope they can talk in the same room at some point as well. But the music for the fans, thank you very much. But thank you for watching, and thank you for all of your support for the Now Spinning Magazine website, for the YouTube channel, those of you who become patrons and YouTube members, and have bought merch as well. Remember, music is the healer and the doctor. So keep spinning those discs, and I'll talk to you all very, very soon.